No. My apologies for that. Hit the right button now. So group leaders or their representatives and scrutiny chairs, Councillor Terry James. It looks as he has entered the waiting room.
Yes, he's just joining now.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Councillor James. Are you able to hear us and see us? Just connecting, I think. Councillor James, we've just about started the meeting. Can you hear and see us? You're on mute at the moment. That's £10 in your case.
Right. Yes. Yes. Good morning. Afternoon, I should say. I can see and hear you.
Thank you, Councillor James. Councillor Shaw, you are substituting for Councillor Lester. Can you see and hear us?
I can, thank you.
Councillor Matthews is present in person. Thank you. Councillor Fagan.
I'm here, Leader. Good afternoon.
Thank you. Councillor Wilding is representing the Independence for Herefordshire group. He is not present at the moment and might join us later. Councillor Howell sends his apologies, as does Councillor Jinman. Councillor Swinglehurst sent her apologies, as does Councillor Stark. And I suspect Councillor Balderson has also sent her apologies. So thank you. I will now formally open the meeting. The agenda papers and other relevant information for this meeting are available for public viewing on the Herefordshire Council website. The Council is streaming this meeting live on the Herefordshire Council YouTube channel and making a recording. To ensure that the recording quality is maintained, please speak as clearly as possible and keep background noise to a minimum. Microphones should be muted when you're not speaking. Please ensure that mobile phones and other devices are turned to silent. Others are permitted to film, photograph and record our public meetings, provided that it does not disrupt the business of the meeting. As we move through the agenda, in addition to discussion by Cabinet members, I will invite group leaders or their representatives, where appropriate, to provide views and questions from their group on each item. Where appropriate, I will also call on scrutiny chairpersons to comment on behalf of their committee. Voting will be undertaken by a show of hands in the room. Only Cabinet members physically present in the room may vote. So first, apologies for absence. I have those from Councillors Chowns, Tyler and Davies, Hardwick and Jinman. Sarah, we've got also from Swinglehurst, Stark, Simons, Balderson. Anybody else wants to be added?
Councillor Bartlett.
Councillor Bartlett, thank you. So then item 2 is declarations of interest. Are there any Schedule 1 or Schedule 2 or other interests for items on the agenda today? I must declare, and Mr. Lovegrove will declare, that we are both interested in item 8 because we are both directors of Hoople Limited. Item 3, minutes to approve and sign the minutes of the meeting held on 12th of December 2022. Our Cabinet members contend that the minutes are an accurate record.
Yeah.
All in favour? Thank you. And I may actually be able to sign those minutes straight after this meeting, which will be a first for a long time. Item 4 is to receive any questions from members of the public. We've received 4 questions from members of the public for this meeting, and a response to each has been published as a supplement to the agenda. Those members of the public who have submitted questions have the opportunity to submit a written supplementary or to join the meeting to ask their questions live. I will now ask the clerk to confirm if the supplemental question is to be asked for each question. We start off with Mr. Wilmont. Do we have a supplemental question from Mr. Wilmont?
No, we don't. Leader.
Thank you. That was quite a detailed response, I thought, Councillor Harrington.
Yeah, I have got there is an update that we're checking it with CCTV today.
Right, thank you. The second item is one for Councillor Toynbee with name and address supplied. I don't know whether you have a supplementary question to that.
I've not received any supplementary question, Leader.
Okay, thank you. The third one is one for me. There has been a supplemental question. I wonder, Sarah, if you'd like to read that supplemental question out.
Yes, and I will get it up on screen for everyone. The supplementary question is as follows. My wife told the leader of the council in a telephone conversation on the 12th of December that she had spent over 2.5 hours talking to the independent investigator. In addition to this extensive oral evidence, she also supplied email evidence at the investigator's request. In my question, I also mentioned the several hours of conversation she had with the independent reviewer. The leader also knows, because she told him on the 12th of December, that despite asking several times, she was never given any summary of her oral evidence, and the draft witness statement she was asked to sign excluded it, despite the fact that her oral evidence was a substantial part of her evidence. I am concerned that the leader is dismissing the facts in front of him in order to avoid having to challenge his senior officers on the veracity of what he has been told by them. My wife told the leader on 12th of December that she has recordings of her conversations with the independent investigator. She can evidence that she is telling the truth, but the leader hasn't asked to have those recordings. Of course, the leader wants to believe his officers, and his desire to believe them has meant that he has chosen to unhear what my wife said and to unread what was stated clearly in my question, that she had several hours of conversation with the independent investigator. The public are alarmed by how often the evidence they are offering is being ignored in favour of simply accepting what officers are saying. We are in a crisis in children's services in part because for years the public's evidence has been ignored. Will the leader start to use the evidence offered to him by the public to challenge officers, or step aside and let someone else lead this cabinet?
Thank you for your supplemental question. I'll have to contact VWV and ask for their comments and a response on what you have said, and I will provide a written response in due course. Thank you. The final question, I think, is from Miss Portman-Lewis, and that's one for you, Councillor Toynbee. I don't know whether there's a supplemental question.
There is, leader. I have a written supplementary which I'll read for you. At the heart of public question 3 is the question of whether senior officers always tell the truth. At the heart of my public question is the same question. When the Chief Executive gave the clear impression on 9th of December that the independent reviewer was working with a number of families, was that true? The A Common Bond families are confident that at 9th of December the independent reviewer was working with only one family. The written answer given to my question suggests that an exact figure cannot be given to protect the identities of the families. A number on its own would not identify any families. This is a smokescreen. An FOI about the Chief Executive's statement has already revealed that the number is in the range of less than 5. It is indeed at best a false assertion to claim that knowing that the exact number is 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 puts anyone at further risk of identification, but identifies if the Chief Executive is working in a timely manner or delaying families in need. It's the inconvenient truth that the exact figure is 1, and that what the Chief Executive implied in his statements on 9th of December was at best misleading.
Yeah, Councillor Toynbee.
Yes, thank you, and thank you for the supplemental question. I've actually written something out so that we don't go round and round in questions that I've in circles, and I've made it a little bit broader. I've addressed more issues than just this specific one. So I hope it's okay to read this out. So I'm going back to the original questions and supplementaries and what lies behind them, so that I can address head on all the questions asked. Delays in responses are frustrating for questioners, and I can't always respond with fact figures and details on the spot. Firstly, as far as families being contacted is concerned, I do understand why the council has to err on the side of caution about making things public at the early stages of engagements in all areas where numbers are very small. This is totally normal for a council, if a little frustrating for some of us. Since the full council meeting that the questioner refers to, more progress has been made on external and independent work, And our DfE Commissioner is helping us to make sure that what we put in place is something that families can have confidence in. I understand and share impatience on this, but it's important that we get it right. I will make sure that families are updated on this as soon as possible. That's what we all want. Secondly, yes, we are addressing historic shortcomings. We're collating the themes arising from families' communications with the council. I raise these constantly with the director and with his teams. It's important to listen, but we have to do more than listen. I have frequent conversations with families and I identify themes myself, but we have to bring everything together in a systematic way. We have to do it properly. We're setting up clear systems for addressing issues, collating themes, and integrating what we learn. This work is very overdue. Everyone's story is different. We can't undo the past, but we can improve the future. We all want the same thing, for families in the future not to have the distressing experiences of the past. Thirdly, as far as leadership is concerned, we have very different people in place now from a few years ago. It's very important that our leaders and managers are engaged in reviews and ongoing engagement with families. There is always a balance to be found between this and an independent perspective, and we will make sure we get that right. I make no apology about that. More chopping and changing would not be helpful. We all want a relationship of trust between the council and the families we work with. As far as feeling safe is concerned, I can assure you that all communications to the Chief Executive, or to me for that matter, are taken very seriously and passed on and dealt with compassionately. We can do better on improving our communications, and this is a priority for us as a Cabinet. I am confident that our senior leaders we now have in place have a good understanding of the issues and of how people are feeling. They welcome feedback and they have us as a Cabinet, us as a council, the Commissioner and Ofsted to answer to. As a council, we've never had so much external and independent support and challenge, and I welcome that. We're pleased to see that effective auditing and reviewing of work is now being built into how we work. There has to be clarity between historic cases, ongoing cases, and the formal complaints system. We must make sure that people feel they're working through a clear system and know where they are in the system and that there are clear endpoints. That doesn't mean that we don't want independent and external work on this, as I mentioned at the beginning. I'm very grateful to everyone we work with for keeping up the pressure for us to be the best we can be. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Toynbee. I'll move on now to item 5. There's one question from a councillor for this meeting, from Councillor Shaw, addressed to the Cabinet member, Councillor Davis, who is not here. I don't know whether, Councillor Shaw, you have a supplemental question, which might then have to be answered.
I did, but I'm happy to give that and have a written reply in due course. The supplemental question follows this line. I very much appreciate the compassion and sympathy of the Cabinet member in this matter and the work that officers from the Community Wellbeing Directorate are doing. I would like to press the Cabinet member, if possible, to give an undertaking that a unit will be identified before the group have to vacate their existing unit. And that's my question.
Thank you, Councillor Shaw. I'm sure we'll make sure that that question is addressed to Councillor Davis. And Councillor Crockett, you can perhaps comment on that.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Thank you, Councillor Shaw. Yeah, we've had ongoing discussions with the group and it's really, really positive. They have not been evicted. They will not be evicted. We really support what they're doing for our Ukrainian refugees and other refugees. So we are working and we will support them.
Thank you. That's good to hear.
Thank you. So moving on then to item 6, reports from the Scrutiny Committee. I think Councillor Norman is available. So there's one report from the Healthcare and Wellbeing Scrutiny Committee. The chair of that committee is not able to attend today, but Councillor Norman, the chair of the Task and Finish Group, is here to introduce the recommendations for the committee. And I have to say, I was tremendously impressed by the report. It's been very thorough, and it's just an excellent piece of work, which hopefully might be available to others around the country to use. So over to you, Councillor Norman.
Thank you very much, Leader, and thank you for those comments. We certainly put a lot of thought and work into it, many meetings and so on. So yes, the purpose of this is really just to submit the report for your response. We, as you'll see in the introduction, 4 of us met. We did a great deal of interviewing. And I would like to reiterate my thanks to the members, officers and witnesses who took part in this, as well as the people we interviewed, in fact, and those members of the public who responded to our call for information from, as the term is, experts by experience. I think we had over 60 responses, so that was extremely helpful. As you'll have gathered, we did not find evidence of harmful impact from the intensive poultry industry on human health, but anecdotal evidence indicates that some people do have anxieties, quite a lot of people do in fact, and concerns, and that part of the problem is the lack of monitoring and inspection and the need for more specific regulation as well as research, which we reference in our recommendations. So our recommendations are very much to this effect. The report includes recommendations around the regulatory framework, joint working, public engagement and awareness, and emphasises the need for further evidence and research. And as I'm sure you're aware, the report was considered by the Healthcare and Wellbeing Scrutiny Committee at its meetings on the 22nd of July, and following further consideration of some of the points raised by that committee, the 25th of November as well. And the committee made some minor amendments, which we were happy with and which are incorporated into the final report. And it also made an additional recommendation, which should be taken into consideration. And that was that the council, this is alongside the ones that we put forward, that the council work with the industry on the assessment of dust and odour emitted near intensive poultry units to assess and verify the modelling of emissions is confirmed from experience. And the intention of this recommendation being to sense check the modelling used in the planning application process. So with this addition, Cabinet is invited to prepare an executive response to the report within 2 months. So I'll keep it very short, leave it at that. Thank you. I think the detail is in the report, as you said, and the summary in my introduction. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Norman. I'll just ask Councillor Crockett whether she's aware of those supplemental recommendations.
Thank you, Leader. No, not at the moment. What I will say to Councillor Norman is a huge thank you for doing this, leading on it. It's been a massive task, and yeah, it's well represented. What I'm waiting for at the moment is confirmation for the supplementary planning document, and also we're looking at the phosphates, etc. So the response will be there within the next couple of weeks, and it's all very positive. So thank you very much for you and your committee members, and obviously the officers. Thank you.
Thank you.
So if I may, I'll put the recommendations which are set out here. A, that the report and impact of the intensive poultry industry on human health and wellbeing made by the Healthcare and Wellbeing Scrutiny Committee at its meeting on the 20th of November 2022 be noted. And secondly, that an executive response to the scrutiny report and recommendations be prepared for consideration by the Cabinet within 2 months, although as Councillor Crockett has indicated, it will be a lot quicker than that, I think. So can I have a show of hands? Always in favour? Thank you very much. So moving on then to item 7, which is to accept and spend any approved levelling up fund allocation to Herefordshire. To accept and approve the expenditure allocated to Herefordshire Council's northern and southern constituencies, and Hereford Transport bids to submit to government which were submitted in August 2022, and secondly to approve the creation of a development company to lead the development of the proposed Ross Enterprise Park site, as well as exploring the feasibility of the development of employment land in the other market towns. This item starts on page 89 of the agenda pack. And in the absence of Councillor Chowns, she's asked me if I would present this particular item, which I'm very pleased to do. Just to make it clear to everybody, we haven't yet been told whether we've been successful in this bid. If it's successful, it will, I think, make a significant difference to the county. So I'm hoping that we will proceed with this. We are told that we will get a decision by the end of January, but you never know with the central government whether they're going to postpone it further. So we submitted £44 million worth of bids to government in August, and we're just awaiting the outcome. The bids included £19.2 million grant request to establish Ross Enterprise Park, addressing critical shortage of employment land on a strategic site. The project will deliver 7 hectares of service employment land as the first phase of the development. It also included £19.9 million grant requested for Hereford transport improvements, supporting the development of the transport hub as a key gateway location to the county and other active travel measures across the city. And the third element was £4.2 million grant request for Leominster and Ledbury public realm improvements, extending the impact of the Heritage Action Zone in Leominster, as well as business and tourism accommodation in the Priory building. Completion of the Master's House landscaping in Ledbury was also included. Whilst there have been significant delays in government communicating the outcome, any approved projects need to be commenced in the financial year 22-23 and be completed by March 2025. That's given the current timescales that the government have given to us. Given these very compressed timescales, the decision seeks pre-approval from Cabinet to accept any funds offered and to implement the detailed bids submitted to government as soon as possible. But appreciate that if we wait until we get the bid, we have to wait for another Cabinet meeting, and it will just delay things unnecessary given that extraordinary timescale. This decision seeks agreement to establish a development company to lead the Ross Enterprise Park project, building on the successful Hereford Enterprise Zone delivery model. The proposed development company would also lead the investigation and development of proposals for employment land in the other market towns identified as a priority in each market town investment plan. That would obviously follow on from hopefully the successful Ross bid. So I don't know whether Mr. Allenby is present. I know he was trying to get into the meeting.
I am here, Councillor Hitchener, if there's any questions, happy to help.
I don't know whether you want to add anything or just take any questions from the Cabinet.
It's just to say that you very kindly considered fully worked up detailed bids in the first place when we submitted them to government some time ago. So this decision is to then implement those bids if we get the green light. Government did contact us before Christmas just to say that they hope to make decisions on, I think it was £2.3 billion worth of bids by the end of January, although they had made a commitment at the start of December to tell us by the end of December. So fingers crossed we'll hear in the next 2 to 3 weeks, but given we need to hit the ground running, this would be grateful if the decision allowed us to kind of prepare and get ready to implement those projects.
Chairman, if I could come in, I've been trying to catch your eye.
Oh, sorry, Councillor.
Is there any particular reason why you didn't allow group leaders to comment on the scrutiny report?
That's really well. I think so. Scrutiny is a cross-party group anyway. So the whole of council is kind of represented, and I think the decision is then a matter for the executive to work out.
I had a couple of questions. You disappointed me. I've had to cross them out now.
Right. Councillor Crockett, yes.
Yeah, just to say, Councillor Matthews, if you want to send any questions to myself, that would be great.
Thank you.
Okay, so do we have any questions on the levelling up fund allocation? Of course, we debated it and considered it as individual projects in the past and approved it. So, Councillor Harvey.
Yes, thank you, Leader. I just wanted to check. I mean, obviously, we've just heard that the decision on awarding funding is sliding to the right. I'm just wondering, are any of the deadlines in terms of spending that money similarly moving to the right, or are we just facing a degree of compression of the delivery timescale? Does anybody know?
Yeah, Mr. Allenby, do you have any news on that, or Mr. Cook?
So we haven't had any revised time frames through from government. What they did allow, so I guess this is as an example, so the UK Shared Prosperity Fund that you considered at a recent meeting to approve the expenditure for, which had allocations in this financial year, they have allowed us to roll forward that expenditure into the next financial year. So that would obviously be helpful if they did the same. It's very unlikely, I'm afraid, that they'll extend the end of March 2025 deadline based on experience of other funding. So hence, we would need to be in a position to deliver the projects quickly if the funding is approved, but nothing official from government. And I hope we'd get clarification with any approved bids around the timescales.
Can I ask a further question then? I mean, given that this decision on funding is heading towards the point in the electoral cycle where we hit a period called PERDA prior to the elections taking place in Herefordshire in local government in May. Do these recommendations here cover the level of delegation that is needed to enable officers to act quickly and to do what may need to be done during the PERDA period to progress these projects as part of normal business, should the funding be awarded?
So colleagues in governance and they may wish to comment, but obviously they've commented on the paper so far. So it does delegate all operational decisions to Ross to be able to move the schemes forward if you were to award this today. Broadly, what it would entail is that we would go out to procurement to find contractors and then appoint those contractors to start the work. So there's not necessarily a need for, as far as I understand it, any further governance decisions. And we wouldn't be making any announcements, obviously, in that PERDA period, but it would allow us to operationally continue as we're allowed to during the pre-election time.
Okay, that's reassuring. I mean, obviously, we've gone through quite a lot of detail in terms of the bids that we've proposed. We've approved and understand what it is we're intending to do. I just don't want any of that slowed down if we hit that PERDA period. So I'm pleased to hear that. Thank you.
Do you have any other questions from Cabinet? So I'll pass on to the group leaders. First of all, Councillor James.
Thank you, Leader. I mean, this is deja vu to a certain extent because the bids have gone in. It's whether we wish to spend the money. It's unfortunate that there were insufficient projects to go away, that we are unable to bid, especially in the north of the county, for the full amount of projects that may have been monies that may have been available to us. But let's hope we'll get all that we bid for. But what I'm concerned about is actually what. Yes, we're going out and starting the work that we do get within the budget of these particular individual projects. We don't want further overspends, which we will be having to subsidise from the council's own, further subsidise from the council's own resources in the coming years.
Yes, Councillor James, you're absolutely right, and that is certainly what will happen through the project project delivery group that we have. Councillor Harvey, I don't know whether you want to comment on that.
Oh, well, I was just racking my brains trying to think of what the projects might be that we've been in charge of since 2019, which have overspent. We have added funds to deliver extra things within projects that were already planned to be delivered, but that's not overspending. That's actually just doing more work. But if Councillor James has anything in mind, I'd be very
Well,
happy to hear it.
I'm sure the public will have a lot in mind.
I'm asking you,
One needs to go online and look at what their concerns about overspends on St Owen Street and other projects.
Yeah, well, that's exactly my point, Councillor James. There isn't an overspend on St Owen Street. What there is additional work that has been undertaken alongside an original project, including the entire resurfacing being brought forward a year from the maintenance programme. So how those schemes are reported in the press and on social media isn't necessarily tallying with the reality of the matter.
Yeah. Well, I'm afraid if you need to walk down the street and ask the public there what they think, they will tell you a very, very different story.
Yeah, well, that's simply because they're being misled by the press and maybe by councillors who are taken in.
So the public are stupid, are they?
Well,
so
no.
You're saying the public are stupid?
No, but maybe elected members such as yourself would be in a position to be able to correct any misconceptions that have been created by the way that the stories have been reported, rather than repeating them in forums such as this.
I think we'll move on from that, and I'll turn to Councillor Shaw, who's standing in for Councillor Lester.
Thank you, Leader. Just a couple of points I'd like to make in relation to this item. Firstly, and it may well be that it's already been addressed, obviously the industrial land at Ross has been in the eye of the council for considerable time, beyond even when I came into to be a councillor. One thing that we did discuss in the previous administration was a local development order for the Ross industrial land, and I just wonder if that has been considered, because it might speed up the delivery of industrial units in that area, and it's something that's within the powers of the council to do. So that's one just point, and the other one, I very much appreciate the problem of we're not allowed to call it the purdah period, but everybody understands what we mean by a purdah period. My understanding was that contracts couldn't be signed during that period, and I just wondered if the solicitors of the council could confirm whether that's the case or not, or in previous periods we've been told not to sign anything, as when I was a cabinet member.
Thank you, Councillor Shaw. I'll ask Mr. Fernandez perhaps to deal with that question first.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. In terms of the what's now called the pre-election period rather than purdah for some reason, business as normal continues, and the council needs to run its business as normal. It's about political advantage. That's the issue. So, from my perspective, there is no problem with contracts being signed, with business being conducted as normal by officers.
Councillor Shaw, do you have a supplemental to that, just to make sure?
No, that I just wanted that clearing, and the point on the possibility of local development orders, whether for a local development order for the Ross industrial area, whether that had been considered or will be considered by the project team in due course.
Yeah, I mean, that applies to the enterprise, and as you say, it's been very helpful with that. I don't know whether Mr. Brown, you able to on that?
Yeah. Certainly, Councillor. So we currently have outline approval currently in place, and everything lined up to proceed with the current development as it's planned. So we don't need the local development order to deliver the project that we've proposed to government as it stands. And we had to submit shovel-ready scheme, so it was quite a key component of our bid and hopeful success on the Ross project for that. But when we look to develop out the wider site, because this really is just the first phase of what's a very big and key strategic site for the county, certainly it would be something that we would consider Councillor Shaw, because it does bring a lot of kind of confidence to the private sector when they're looking to buy sites and develop, that there is that pre-planning approval already in place, and the speed of turnaround of application to allow them to develop has been one of the key attractions of the Hereford Enterprise Zone. We are looking to replicate the kind of delivery model of the enterprise zone on Ross Enterprise Park that gives that kind of private-led input and engagement, whilst the council maintains the delivery elements. So yes, we certainly will, but we don't need it in place to progress the first phase, thankfully.
Thank you.
Councillor Matthews.
Most of it's been said, Chairman. It's nice to see that we've been acknowledged and identified as a priority 1 area, and I don't know whether the administration know, the MPs play a role in obtaining that identity. Perhaps somebody could tell me if that was the case. The other thing is, I warmly welcome the Ross Enterprise Park development. That's been in the pipeline for some time. I've been saying for many years, Ross is an area near a proper infrastructure, the M50 and where have you, where we should really be building our industry to enhance the county and bring in big players. So I think, that's something, and I welcome that, and it's good to see it off the ground. The other thing is that perturbing me is on recommendation E, approve the creation of a new development company to lead the development of Ross Enterprise Park and the feasibility of developing employment land sites in other market towns. Why couldn't that be elsewhere in the county? Development sites elsewhere in the county rather than just market towns. For example.
So first of all, whether the MPs were involved in upgrading, we have an answer potentially from the Chief Executive here.
Yes, thank you, Leader. Members will recall the first round of levelling up funds, the Herefordshire was identified as a priority 2 area. Since that time, we had a visit by the then Secretary of State, who the Leader and I and others lobbied hard regarding our priority status, recognising the specific needs of a rural county, and that we made the argument that we should be placed in the priority 1 category. That was supported by our MPs, as it was supported by others, and we were confirmed as being a priority 1 area in this round of funding. It was caveated by the comment that it was for this round only, but we will take that opportunity that we've been given, and we'll fight hard to retain it, as you would expect.
And your other suggestion about changing the reference to other market towns to other areas of the county, I think I'll take a little bit of guidance from other cabinet members. Councillor Harvey, do you have a particular view on that?
I'm not entirely sure, but my guess is that it's because we've got economic delivery plans and strategies that have been worked up for each of the market towns. I think what we have coming towards Cabinet is an economic plan for the entire county looking out to 2050, and that is covering everywhere. And we've been very clear that we're keen to make sure that rural areas are considered in terms of what's appropriate for supporting economic growth, health and prosperity there, and that may be different from what's required in the city and in the market towns, so each to their own. So I would expect the big economic plan to be providing a framework for development broader than that. And I think what we're doing here is not running before we can walk, and focusing on giving delegations for things that we already have plans set out and published to take forward. And I think that's the only reason for it there, Councillor Matthews.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. I'm glad that you mentioned that and noted it, because in my humble opinion, the rural areas produce tremendous wealth and job opportunities for this county, and we must make sure that we make every opportunity to make sure that they're developed.
Thank you, Councillor Matthews. Moving on then to Councillor Fagan.
Thank you, Leader. As a former council employee employed in Ross nearly 20 years ago to work on plans to develop model farm, it's really, really great to see us at this point where we might be able to move forward. It seems to have taken an extraordinarily long time, and a lot of work went into developing plans in Ross that had to be sort of put on hold because of austerity, etc. But Ross is very well placed to support the county economically. It's an excellent location, and so it seems to be a sort of fingers crossed. Hopefully we will get the funding, which seems an extraordinary sort of position to be in, given that we're in January and that the projects will need to start sort of before the end of this financial year and be finished by 2025. That puts a huge amount of pressure on the team, and I'm sure that they're very capable of meeting that. But it does I think create a lot of risk for this amount of funding. So, but that's how the funding works at the moment. Then hopefully we'll get it. What I'm curious to know is, if we don't get this funding, what will happen to the plans for model farm?
Yeah, well, we desperately hope that we get the funding, and if we don't, we'll have to reassess and put in another capital program if necessary, and kind of go back to the drawing board. But as you rightly point out, it's a tremendous opportunity, and I do hope that the government will actually be listening to us. We've got a first-rate project and a real opportunity to make a difference to Ross. Mr. Cook, I don't know whether you wanted to commit.
Thank you. Just to reiterate those points, obviously our focus at the moment is for government to make the right decision and approve the funding submission that we made. We clearly do have some plan for model farm that we'll continue to review and ensure that we do have a delivery plan for that. But at this stage, we certainly want to make sure that their response to our submissions come in first.
It's complex, really, to a big project like this, and it doesn't kind of stand on its own feet financially, so there has to be a degree of in effect subsidy from the centre, and that has to be really accountable to the public as to whether we spend the money in Ross or we spend it in Leominster or as Councillor Matthews says, in the more urban areas. But we hope we will make that kind of evaluation. Councillor Harvey.
Yes, Leader. I think the key point is that, as Mr. Allenby said, government was looking for shovel-ready projects that could be responded to very quickly with this levelling up funding, and it's indicative of our commitment to developing this site in Ross, that we had plans that were at the point where we could submit them under this levelling up funding. So it will be a crushing disappointment if that funding is not secured in this round of grant awards. But our commitment to taking this development forward will remain, and we will look for funding from other sources in order to achieve it. I think that's the key message to people in Ross who might be concerned. We might not have a plan B on the horizon, but that doesn't mean that we're not really keen to see this project happen, and we'll be looking for other ways to do that.
Leader, can I just say thank you to the team, the economic development team, for sort of getting us to this point, because it is challenging, and I think that they've done a really great job.
Thank you very much. I think Councillor Wilding is not available, so I will move to recommend this proposal to the Cabinet. Are the recommendations as set out in the report? Are you in favour? Thank you. I have to go for the next item, but I just want to make a few comments about the flooding, which is in the county at the moment. We had a briefing this morning. There are obviously some significant issues. The Y has yet to reach its peak, and it might get worse over the weekend. Officers are working hard to ensure that everything is done that is possibly done, and the residents of properties that are particularly at risk are told. There are a number of roads which are flooding, and we all know the risks of people going into roads which are flooded and then ending up breaking down or even risking life. So I just encourage people not to risk going into flooded areas. There are usually diversion routes in place. And I don't know whether, Chief Executive, whether you'd like to add any further comment to that. I don't know what the communication we have at the moment out to the communities is.
No, thank you, Leader. I think for me, really pleased with the response from the council staff and the Environment Agency and other emergency services, making sure we are kept safe in many respects, and we reduce the risk to people. It is important that people follow the guidance and the rules that were set out, and I think in terms of communication, we're keen that Council's website and that of the Environment Agency carries up-to-date information about those roads which are both open and closed, and the situation with flooding, and watching the forecasts and estimates for water levels in our rivers, and kind of to stay alert. I think from what I've seen in Herefordshire, the community are well practiced and confident in terms of responding here, and I think that's testimony to the community and how they respond and take a very mature approach and responsible approach. But I think at the bottom it's thank you to everyone for their efforts, and we'll keep going, get to the side of this bad weather period.
Thank you, Chief Executive. So I regrettably have to leave it for the next item. It relates to Hoople, and I'm the director of Hoople. I would probably say this, but Hoople is a tremendous success for the council and this county. It's just doing amazing work. And the other item, which is about governance of our shareholdings in various companies, something I think which is due for us to be looking at. If you look at other councils and you see the issues which are going on there, we probably do need better governance than we've got in place at the moment, and I'd love to be involved in the debate, but I can't. So I'll pass the chair over to Bobby. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, everybody. Right, we're now on agenda item 8, which is to approve the approval of contractual arrangements with Hoople Limited and the creation of a new shareholder committee. Okay, so this is a bit of a bit more of putting some good governance in place, both in terms of how we regulate and make public our arrangements in terms of service provision from Hoople, which is a company that is almost entirely owned by the council, but does have some minor shareholders from other councils that are also its customers. And it's also a little bit of looking ahead and putting in place a new committee which will not only oversee the operation of our relationship with Hoople, but also any other shareholdings that the council may have in other organisations in the future. So I think I can do little better than read through the recommendations that come with this report in terms of summarising what we're trying to do here. So the recommendations are that Cabinet approves the terms of the new service agreement between the Council and Hoople Limited, substantially in the form as set out at Appendix 1, which is a significant document in its own right. That the Council notes, that Cabinet notes that Hoople Limited have been consulted on this service agreement and are content with the arrangement and the approach that we're taking on that. I have a minor amendment to recommendation C, which is that Cabinet agree the terms of reference for the shareholder committee. That's as published. And nominate, and this is where there's a minor amendment, and nominate at the next Cabinet meeting the membership of a shareholder committee of Cabinet as set out in Appendix 2. So we will defer until the next meeting nominating precisely who will be members of that committee, partly because we haven't got all Cabinet members present here. Recommendation D, that Cabinet recommend to Council changes to the Constitution to strengthen the governance framework to enable the Audit and Governance Committee to have effective oversight of the governance of the Shareholder Committee, to extend the terms of reference of scrutiny in relation to the operation of the Shareholder Committee, and to be explicit about the powers to set up the Shareholder Committee, and that the Deputy Section 151 officer, the monitoring officer, following consultation with a Cabinet member for Finance, Corporate Services and Planning, are authorised to finalise the Hoople Services Agreement and to take all operational decisions with regard to the implementation of the above recommendations. So I'm very pleased that we are at a point where we've got this as a decision in front of us. It's going to put a committee in place which is going to make public, in the way that it operates, the oversight of the Council's shareholding in other organisations. And I think that is all to the good. And it is also setting out in clear terms what our arrangements are between ourselves and Hoople. And I think for public information, that is also a very good step forward. So there is a very significant document, as I said, in terms of Appendix 1, outlining the detail of that. And I think I'll leave it there and open it up to any questions that Cabinet colleagues might have on what's being proposed here. Councillor Harrington.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. This is probably one for the Deputy MO. It's I've had a question come from a group member, just why this is going to be a committee stakeholder group appointed from Cabinet rather than necessarily from the full membership, as we do on some external and associate organisations. I suspect because this is a function of the executive, but I just want to check on that. You can have that clarified.
Through you, Chair. Yes. Councillor Hampton, spot on. This is an executive function. It could have been delegated to officers, but this way the executive function is being exercised by the executive in public. So the reason it's a committee of Cabinet is that it's exercising those executive functions. Simple as that.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? No. Okay. In that case, I'll open questions up to group leaders, and Councillor James, if you'd like to go first.
No, I don't think there's much to be said. I mean, it's a step forward, should we put it this way, as far as the governance is concerned.
Great.
Thank you. Brief and to the point. Councillor Shaw.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm sure I'll look forward to seeing the detail as it comes forward and understanding how the governance is to be arranged. Back in September 2018, the Audit and Governance Committee received a paper from the solicitors of the council detailing governance of Hoople. But I welcome this this move to enhanced scrutiny, and I think it bodes well for the future. So that's really all I wanted to say.
Right, thank you very much. Councillor Fagan.
Yeah, obviously Hoople has been a great success for the council, and so this seems to be the next stage that we need to go to just make sure that we have complete oversight of what is happening with Hoople as more and more services are sort of delivered by Hoople. So we welcome this as Greens, we welcome this development, and as Councillor Shaw said, just you know, sort of looking to the finer detail when that comes through.
Thank you. Councillor Matthews?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I've been monitoring the financial annual reports of Hoople for many years. And for many years they were losing many millions of pounds through sheer mismanagement. It pulled up last year or the year before where they showed a reasonable profit, but they've slipped back again. Now, we were told when we got involved with this company that it would generate a fair bit of wealth and return for the taxpayer of the county. That hasn't really happened. So I warmly welcome, Chair, the supervision of the Audit and Governance Committee and any other improvements that will help to basically better monitoring and better supervision, you know, not to be critical, but just to make sure that we're getting value for money and everybody's, you know, doing what they should be doing. So I welcome what's been proposed, and I certainly welcome the scrutiny side of it, because I think that's well overdue. And as Councillor Shaw said, like, you know, I think they'll do a good job to monitor it as well. I don't know whether you can tell me, Councillor Harvey, the fact that they are linked with other authorities, in your opinion, do you find that advantageous or detrimental?
It's a matter for Hoople that it's their customers. I think the fact that some of their customers wish also to become shareholders is a very positive sign that they think that their relationship with Hoople is a positive one and one that they wish to be more closely involved with. And I think the broadening of Hoople's customer base in the public sector is also indicative that the services they're providing are valued and are, you know, their reputation is growing as their customer base broadens. So I'm sorry to hear that you feel you've had concerns about their performance in the past. I hear only good things about Hoople, and I hope that continues.
Yeah, with due respect, Councillor Harvey, back a few years ago, it wasn't what it should be. And there was considerable money lost in the setup, like, you know, but we are where we are now, and these recommendations should help to improve.
Thank you, Councillor Matthews. Have we got Councillor Wilding available online?
No, Deputy Chair, he cannot connect.
He can't connect. Okay. Well, in that case, this isn't something that's gone to scrutiny, so there aren't opportunities for any comments from scrutiny yet, although there will be in the future. Now, if we approve the recommendations, so can I have an indication from Cabinet members in the room, those in favour of the recommendations with the amendment that I outlined to recommendation C? Excellent. Okay, thank you very much. That's carried. And do we bring Councillor Hitchener back in the room then to finish off the? He's leaving. He's leaving. He's gone. He's gone. Right. Okay. Well, in that case, he's taken his script with him. So, hang on a moment while I bring up the agenda for the meeting. Let's just finish it off properly, shall we? So 8, closing the meeting, rightio. Okay, so I would like to thank everybody for attending. The next Cabinet meeting, at which we'll also be nominating Cabinet members for the shareholder committee, will be Thursday the 26th of January. And with that, I will close this meeting and ask for confirmation that the live streaming has been stopped.